I just downloaded Unity, the most popular game-making software in the world, but I have no idea how to use it. So to practice, I'm gonna make a complete horror game, but I only have 5 days to learn Unity and complete the game. Here's my idea. You're in a cabin in the woods and there's a monster hunting you, but the monster disappears in the light. Kind of like that one movie. Your lights constantly go out, so to survive, you have to go outside and fix your generator and defend yourself with a flashlight that has barely any battery. With my plan laid out, I got right to work. On day 1, I made a placeholder for the cabin and started on the environment. I surrounded the cabin in short grass and added trees and tall grass further away for the monster to hide behind. Unity made this super easy, so even though I knew nothing, it didn't take long to learn and it looked pretty good. Then I grabbed a free cabin off Unity Marketplace and put that in my game. It looks good, but you couldn't open or close the door, so I would have to add that myself. Shouldn't be too hard, right? Wrong. Reality hit me and I realized how much I don't know about Unity. And as simple as opening a door is, it took me over 2 hours to get working. I realized that getting this done in 5 days might be harder than I thought, but I kept working on it. The next thing I added was the flashlight, and thankfully this was easy. Except it was completely pointless to have a flashlight if it was this bright outside. So I adjusted the lighting to make it seem like night and added fog to make things scarier. And I would continue to mess with the lighting for the rest of the 5 days, so if it looks different at times, that's why. But that marked the end of day 1. Since I had most of the world set up, I planned to spend day 2 adding features, but this meant learning to code in Unity. I wanted to make the generator randomly go out, so I added custom lights inside the house and wrote some simple code for the game to wait a random amount of time before the generator breaks and the lights go out. And you could fix them by going up to the generator and holding E. This was really easy because Unity's programming language is just like one I already know called Java. This chart probably explains it pretty well, but I didn't read it because it was too many words. Anyway, things were going really well. Then my Unity crashed and I lost like 3 hours of progress. As much as this sucked, a lot of the code saved and I was starting to get the hang of things. It took less than an hour to get back to where I was, but that was time I couldn't afford to waste because once I had my progress back, day 2 was over. On day 3, I realized I would have to speed things up, so I got to work on adding the monster. My first idea was to take an existing model and distort it to make it creepy. I tried this and
hell no, man. What the fuck, man?
So I deleted him and used a Blender plugin to create a more realistic character, and this guy looked so much better. I threw him in my game, downloaded a crawl animation, and added basic textures to him, but I planned on updating these in the future. Getting him to follow you was super easy in Unity, and that's terrifying. I also added an attack animation that plays when he gets close. Right now, it does no damage, but don't worry, I have something planned for this. Then I messed up. Being new to Unity, I probably hit a button without realizing it, but I somehow reset my entire environment. Like the crash from earlier, this was a waste of time I couldn't afford, but at this point, I understood how to remake it on my own, so making a new environment was so much faster than the first one. And to be honest, I'm kinda glad this happened because the new one turned out so much better. With that done, I wanted to make the enemy disappear in the light. I did this by making a shape stick out of the flashlight that would detect if it touched the enemy. If the shape touches the enemy while the flashlight is on, it would cause him to be instantly teleported to one of the 12 spawn points I placed outside the forest. I made the shape invisible, and this gave the illusion of him disappearing and gave the player a few seconds of safety. But once it was working, I realized it was super overpowered. So to balance it out, I gave the flashlight a battery that runs out super quick, meaning you had to be smart with how you used it. And that wrapped up day 3. On day 4, it was finally time for the best part of every horror game. A jump scare. Remember the attack that does no damage? Well, instead of giving the player health and having this hurt them, I made it a jump scare. Basically, if you got close to the enemy, the camera would spin around to look at him and he would play this animation I downloaded. While I was working on it, I realized our boy here had perfect teeth, and that's just not scary. So I went evil dentist mode on this guy until it looked like he ate rocks. While I was at it, I did my best to make the enemy scarier by changing the textures, and I eventually decided on this one. I made the jump scare like I planned, but it wasn't scary. First off, it was way too dark, so I added a creepy light that spawns in when he catches you. And like any good jump scare, I added a sound effect that was probably a little too loud. With everything added, the jump scare turned out pretty solid. But the game still had a ton of problems. The first problem was the enemy would camp outside the door and kill you as soon as you went outside.
Let me in!
I fixed this by making him go into the woods when you were inside with the lights on. Then when the lights went out, he would come back to hunt you. Or at least he tried. With the door closed, he couldn't actually get inside, so you could just wait out the whole night if you wanted. With time running out, I decided the best solution was to make the door broken and lay it on the porch. Now, if the generator turns off and you wait inside too long, I also added a main menu that would load whenever you died, and I called this game The Cabin. To make the game feel scarier, I made the grass taller so the enemy could sneak up on you from pretty much anywhere. I also updated the lights to make them glow a little bit when they're on. Finally, it was day 5. The base game worked, but there were still a lot of small things to add. I started the day by adding sound effects for all the actions in the game and some ambience like crickets and making the lights hum, which made it way scarier. Then I added simple UI like a battery percentage and a progress bar for fixing the generator. But then I realized there was no way to win the game. I set up a clock at the top of the screen and made it so that if you survive until 7 AM or about 5 minutes, you win. Even with something this simple, it took a couple of tries to get right. With day 5 coming to an end, things were looking good. But then I discovered a huge flaw in the game. And that was, the flashlight worked inside with the lights off. This might seem like it's supposed to happen, but this allows the player to sit inside all night and be safe. With time running out, the quickest solution I could come up with was to detect if the enemy was in the house and make him immune to the flashlight unless you go outside. So you were forced to go fix the generator. And with that, the game was finished and I had almost no time remaining. So let's test it out. Alright, I just gotta survive like 5 minutes and I feel like I should be able to. Like if I can't beat my own game, that's pretty embarrassing. All I know is I'm safe here because the lights are on. It's almost 1 and the generator still hasn't gone out, so I'm chilling right now. Shit. No worries? Oh shit. Oh, he was right behind me. Got him at like the last second. Oh, shadow. Oh my god. That scared the shit out of me. You can play for free in the description.